Hello, I'm Professor Patrick Slattery from the New York City College of Technology, and this video is about researching businesses. We'll go over an introduction to the fundamentals of researching products and businesses with a step-by-step checklist of research dimensions and some references to common resources available for each dimension. Before we continue, let's talk about whether you might find this video useful. If your research involves evaluating different companies or sectors or industries of business, then this video should be helpful for you. If your research involves looking at a product or several products and trying to understand about the businesses that produce those products, this video should be useful as well. During this video, you may see some photographs or images that were provided by photographers and others as open source content on unsplash.com. Those will be footnoted when they're used. Any other graphics are courtesy of Microsoft PowerPoint, which was used to produce this video. And one more note, as we go through different uses of websites or resources on the web, bear in mind that references to websites will not include the https:// at the start or the www prefixes. Just remember that it's safer to always use HTTPS and not to try to access websites using just HTTP without the S. If your research involves evaluating products or brands, you will want to map those to the company that produces that product or brand. You can start by reviewing product labeling or promotional material and looking for the manufacturer's name, typically in a smaller font and perhaps down at the bottom of the material. If the manufacturer's name isn't clear, look for special terms like imported by, or terms like group or alliance, and see what information you can glean there. Understand that there can be several layers of companies that own parts of subsidiary companies that eventually are involved in producing the product or brand that you're researching, and you may need to build a network diagram to show the connections between those companies as you make your way up to the top of that hierarchy or the ultimate parent company. It will be helpful for you to understand that there are different types of businesses. In casual conversation, we oftentimes use the terms corporate or company without really knowing the specifics of the entity we're talking about. But when we're researching it, it's important to know what type of entity we're looking at. A business can be a corporation. That will typically have the term incorporated or corporation in its name, or some abbreviation of that. Outside of the US, corporations may have the letters SA, BV, or other indicators in their name. In addition to corporations, there are partnerships and a special form of partnership called a limited liability partnership, or LLP. And then the third fundamental type of business is a privately owned business. If a business is organized as a corporation, it can be one of two types: a public corporation or a privately held one. A public corporation offers stock on a public stock exchange to the general public. Public corporations are subject to regulation, which then generates additional data that we can use in our research, data that may not be available on privately held companies. For businesses in the United States, they need to be registered with a specific state. The business entity, regardless of whether it's a corporation or partnership, regardless of whether it's publicly traded or privately held, must be registered with a state. The state's Secretary of State website will typically offer a business entity search available using a company name or a business name. You can try different formats of the name if something doesn't come up initially, such as using initials or abbreviations. The best place to start looking at a Secretary of State website to research a business entity would be on the state where the business is headquartered. But it's not always the case that a business is registered in the same state as it has its headquarters. If you don't find the business on the Secretary of State website in the state where the business is headquartered, then try popular states for incorporation, such as Delaware and Nevada. Let's talk some more about levels of company ownership, or what are referred to as corporate hierarchies. This is important to understand as you map out the network of companies to try to ultimately get to the parent company that you'll be researching. Companies can own other companies, but that ownership does not have to be 100%. One company may own part of another company, and there can be many levels to this hierarchy of ownership. In addition, sometimes companies may come together to create joint ventures. You want to document all of this as you research. Privately held companies will have individuals as owners, or perhaps other private companies. Partnerships will have individuals as partners who are the owners of that business. For publicly traded corporations, the owners, who are the shareholders, are represented by the board of directors. The board of directors is ultimately responsible for the company. And for publicly traded companies, you can see who the individual board members are by going to the Securities Exchange Commission's EDGAR website at sec.gov/EDGAR. That same SEC site, EDGAR, has a wealth of detailed historical information on the financial results for publicly traded companies. The EDGAR site has a significant amount of other information as well, and it might be a little cumbersome to use in conducting your research. You might find the use of sites such as Yahoo Finance easier to use when conducting research on the financial history of a company. You can access Yahoo Finance at finance.yahoo.com. Publicly traded companies are required by law to report financial results every quarter, that is, at the end of every 3 months. Many of those companies will conduct an earnings call or a conference call with financial analysts after releasing their quarterly results. The earnings calls give financial analysts an opportunity to ask management questions about the business. This can be a rich source of information on a variety of topics, not just financial results. The investor relations section of a company's website will often keep a history of the earnings calls. You can research a calendar of upcoming earnings calls at the Nasdaq earnings calendar page, which you can find online at nasdaq.com/market-activity/earnings. Those earnings calls are also recorded as transcripts, which are available from Seeking Alpha at seekingalpha.com/earnings/call-transcripts. If you prefer reading to listening, these can be useful. They're also great for a natural language processing algorithm if that is a part of your research. Most businesses also will produce press releases, typically when there's an event, either a positive or a negative event, that they would like to communicate the company's perspective about. Most companies will post links to a history of their press releases on their website. In addition, there are repositories of business press releases at BusinessWire, which you can find online at businesswire.com, or at PR Newswire, which is online at prnewswire.com, and on Yahoo Finance, which we mentioned earlier, at finance.yahoo.com. Bear in mind when you're reading a press release from a business that it will have a strong bias in favor of that business's perspective. If the subject you're researching impacts a large part of the economy or a sector or industry significantly, then you may find information in articles on a number of different business publications. Some of the major business publications include Bloomberg Businessweek, available online at bloomberg.com. The Economist, which generally has a global scope and a rich set of information on a region-by-region basis, is available at economist.com. Cranes is a US-based series of business newsletters focused on different cities. If there's a Cranes newsletter for the city in which your business is headquartered, you may find articles there. Fortune magazine at fortune.com is another good source. And for broad perspectives on topics of general interest, Harvard Business Review at hbr.com, or the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Sloan Management Review at sloanreview.mit.edu are good sources to check. Of course, the mainstream media will provide information. Publications such as the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Guardian out of the UK, or the Times of London will cover stories not only of broad impact, but specifically about a particular company or an incident or series of events. There are quite a number of online media focused on business and business topics. But as you conduct your research, you may want to keep these three at the top of your list. Investopedia at investopedia.com, Fast Company at fastcompany.com, and Inc. at inc.com. Information about ongoing lawsuits and a history of litigation can be very helpful in your research as well. The Newman Library at CUNY's Baruch College has an online guide with information about researching company lawsuits using various sources. At the Newman Library website, click on the Law, Reference, and Topical Research section, and then click on the tab Finding Company Lawsuits. Or use this short URL, bit.ly, that's bit.ly, /company lawsuits, all one word, company lawsuits. In addition to financial results, you can get detailed stock trade data for free from the Nasdaq at nasdaq.com/market-activity/quotes/historical. You can also get stock trade data for free at Yahoo Finance, online at finance.yahoo.com. If you plan on working with financial data for multiple companies, consider a data source such as the American Association of Individual Investors at AAII.org. Bear in mind that AAII is a paid resource, but check with your university library to see if you might have access for free. In addition, Bloomberg at bloomberg.com has extensive data available and analytic tools to work with it, but it is costly. If your library has free access to a Bloomberg terminal, that can provide a great deal of research information. Many research topics on a business can be enriched with an understanding of the performance and experience of the business's peers or competitors. That is, the other companies that are in their sector or industry. In the US, Standard Industrial Classification Codes, or SIC codes, were developed a while ago to help organize companies by industry. They were developed by the US Office of Management and Budget, but over time, OMB realized that they could make improvements and came up with a new code scheme called the North American Industry Classification System, or NAICS. Even though the NAICS codes work better than SIC codes, you may find a number of your research sources using SIC codes. So you may end up having to become familiar with both. For each business that you're researching, be sure to understand their SIC code and their NAICS code. You can find SIC codes at siccode.com, and the NAICS codes are at naics.com. Other web and social media sources of information when researching a company include, of course, the company's own website. If you're looking at the individuals who are on the board of directors or the senior management team members of a company, LinkedIn at linkedin.com is a good source of information. With the company's stock ticker symbol, you can find a good deal of information on social media sites such as Twitter at twitter.com or Reddit at reddit.com. One often overlooked source of excellent information on businesses are speeches and conference presentations. Many senior executives and professionals from businesses will speak at events and conferences, and oftentimes in their presentations and speeches, they will present a good deal of information about the company, its background, its current and its future plans. In addition to the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, which we discussed earlier, there are some other excellent U.S. government sources of information on businesses. One is the Bureau of Labor Statistics at bls.gov. Information there is often organized by SIC code. Another good federal source of information is the Department of Commerce at commerce.gov, as well as the Federal Trade Commission at ftc.gov. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, at osha.gov can often yield some detailed information about operational circumstances at a business, as can information from the Environmental Protection Agency at epa.gov. Don't forget to look for information at industry-specific agencies based on the industry or sector of the business you're researching, such as the Food and Drug Administration at fda.gov, or the Department of Agriculture at usda.gov, the National Transportation Safety Board at ntsb.gov, the Federal Communications Commission at fcc.gov, the Department of Energy at doe.gov, and many others. Your work researching a business will be dynamic and iterative. Plan to learn as you go. Keep notes on the links you find to new and alternate sources of information. Build a dossier on each company and each key person. And refer to earlier research when you unearth a new thread. Most importantly, work with your librarian. Your librarian will have up-to-date tools and techniques. Good luck with your research.